This month we're interviewing Jill Konrath with she's an author, consultant, right? And dealing with selling to large companies and selling to larger companies, as she said. And we really want to talk to you about your book, Snap Selling. And I'm going to throw out something. You said some things as far as how busy. You wrote a letter in there that I thought was just great, and I wanted to start with that. I almost wanted to take that letter out and send it to a couple of salespeople that I've had to deal with. But then I got to thinking about it. We're in business. We're all salespeople, and we're all probably guilty of this. What made you even think about writing this book? What got you started down this path?
What got me started on snap selling was the fact that my own prospects, when I was making calls to them, I would find people that appeared to be really interested in what we were doing, and that really felt that I could help their firm. And suddenly, they went radio silent on me. They'd say, "Well, why don't you get back to me in about a week?" And so I'd try calling them in a week, and nothing. Try calling a week later. Then I'd send an email, and then I'd send another email. And at first, I thought, did I misunderstand something here? I mean, I could have sworn they were interested in what we were talking about. And then when they still didn't get back to me, I thought, my goodness, I must have really ticked somebody off, and I didn't understand what I did wrong. And so then what happened is I actually started talking to some of my customers and asking them about what was going on, and discovered that the real issue was that not that they didn't want to work with me, but that they were so busy, and with all the cutbacks and the facts that their organizations were running so lean and mean, that they just did not have the time to do all the work that had to be done with the resources they had in the time frames that they had. So it was like they were a plate spinner, and they had all these things that were going on, and they were trying to spin whatever plate was the one that was tipping at that moment in time, and I wasn't tipping as a salesperson, so they just ignored me.
And you do a really good description of the frazzled customer, because we're all there. I think and it's
Right.
the speed of business has improved so dramatically in the last 5 years. Would you not say it's changed?
Oh, yeah, it has. It has, and it's funny because I talk to a lot of business people and small business owners, and even those from larger companies, and intellectually, everybody knows that people are crazy busy. I mean, they understand that, and then I say to them, and so what are you doing differently in your
Hmm.
approach to, your targeted customer than you did before? And they look at me like deer in the headlights, and they go, differently. I mean, I didn't even know there was different. It's like they think that there is one way to do things, and so um, what I've been on a mission on in the last few years is to really help wake people up to the things that they have to do differently in order to attract the attention of a crazy busy decision maker, and to keep the attention of a crazy busy person. So that's kind of what got me going, is this sense of overwhelm, and the fact that my normal approach was not effective anymore. And I'm very sensitive to effectiveness, so I watch it.
Yeah, in your book, Snap Selling, you went into very good detail about the three decisions that we have to make as buyers. And
Yes.
I think this is designed for the small business owner. And one of the things that just to give you a little, same thing happened to me. I opened a CPA firm. What do I know about selling? I got
Nothing. But you
six,
have to get busy.
absolutely nothing. I got 6 clients in the first 2 weeks. Thought this is easy. The seventh one showed up 7 months later, and I went, maybe I need to do something different. And many of the business owners that I deal with have that same problem. They're very good at what they do, don't know anything about selling.
Right.
And now all of a sudden the rules have changed, and 90% of the books that are out there don't cover what I saw in your book. And in fact, I'm
Right.
likely to add your book as one of those must-haves. I mean, when somebody comes in to see me, I usually tell them, they got to pick up Guerrilla Marketing and, a few other books like that. I think yours is almost need to be out there, because you define the problem, but you went through three decisions before, and I loved your term, the delete button. The delete
Yeah.
where,
Right.
I like delete. It covers it, I think, because
Yeah.
talk to me about those three decisions that you went into.
Yeah, but they're really, when I look at selling, I can't just look at selling as a forward going thing. Selling is a two-way street. There's the buyer and then there's the seller. And to me, the seller has to understand the buyer at all times and where they're at. And so the whole book is framed around how buyers make decisions, and then what
Right.
sellers should be doing at each stage of the buyer decision. And the first major decision that any buyer will make, and I mean potential buyer, and the buyer doesn't have to be like a purchasing buyer, it could be the CEO of a company. But the very first decision they have to make is to allow you access. Are they going to talk with you? Invite you in. Their time, when you're crazy busy, time is your most precious commodity. And therefore you protect it at all costs. And so literally they've got these barriers up around them, and they're not responding to your approach at all. So what we have to do on one hand is we have to think, okay, they're making a decision to allow access. What do I have to do differently in order to get their attention and to get them to say, yeah, let's have a quick conversation. So that's the first decision.
So, I mean, can I stop you there a second? I mean, basically what you're talking about there, and you said something else in the book where the goal really isn't the sale. What we're really talking about is like, I have somebody that came in today, dropped off a copier pamphlet and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And I'm like, what? I don't know who you are. All right. So, I mean, we almost need to earn the right to even talk to them, don't we? Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because when you are crazy busy, you don't want any interruptions. And for the most part, your vision of a buyer, from the buyer's perspective, most salespeople are interruptions.
Yeah.
And they barge into your office. They want your time when you don't have it. You've got meetings to go to. You've got things to prep for your meetings. You're just overwhelmed. And a salesperson is the last person in the world that you want to meet with. And when I say salesperson, I don't mean just salesperson. I mean you, a CPA.
Of course.
Trying to sell me. It's anybody who wants my time and attention so that I might buy their products or services. And so where I'm finding the most people struggling right now is that they're not even getting in the conversation because they have not changed what they need to do in order to get somebody to pick up the phone and call them back and say, you left me this voicemail message, and can you tell me more? That was interesting what you said. And so they don't get that reaction because their whole approach is wrong. And then the second decision, and I'll just quickly go through and come back and talk about the second decision, which I think is the hardest decision, is the decision to get somebody to change. I mean, most salespeople right now are failing at the front end. They're not getting in. But if they do get in, the bigger decision now becomes, do I change from the status quo? And what we all have to realize is that how we're doing things today is easier than anything else because we don't have to think. We're on autopilot. With whatever systems we have, with whatever vendors we use or service suppliers. I mean, in your position, it's hard to change accounts. You got to. Literally, I changed accounts this year, so I have a new CPA this year, and I know I've had 2 meetings with this guy just to bring him up to speed on my business and what I'm doing and how I'm organized. This is 2 meetings I don't have time for, but I'm satisfied enough with my previous accountant that I switched. But the decision to change is a big deal because it involves many, many thoughts on the part of the buyer in terms of, is it really worth my time and to go through the pain of switching what I'm currently doing, maybe having to read some things, re-educate people, etc. So that's a decision. And then once they make the decision to change, then they say, okay, we got to do something. What's up? What are my options? And then it becomes, maybe they check referrals, maybe they ask their best friends, like in your business, who's a good CPA firm. They might go online too and check out things, and they're just really doing a lot of research. But the third decision is now, who are we going to work with, which is a whole different decision. Should we change? So that's kind of the 3 decisions, and each one you have to, as a seller, change your approach.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think the book really is well worth getting into. You went into each of those decisions in really good detail. I mean, I was impressed by that because I don't think too many salespeople, too many of them are stuck on the idea, hi, I'm Wayne, can I have your check now?
Yeah, want to see my stuff? I'll come in and I'll
put
my laundry list on your desk, and maybe there's something feel like, I want this, I can do that, I can do everything, and that's what most people do is they kind of go, we can do all this crap for you, and literally the buyer goes, keep away from me, you're sliming me.
I lost you there. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we broke up for just a little bit, but that's all right.
Okay.
I think we got most of it. And that's, let's lead. I want to keep this moving. So, I mean, there's so much there. I mean, I'm going to reiterate that part of what I put in the magazine is recommending a book. This is going to be one that they just need to buy. If you're in business and you sell to somebody, that process of getting inside the buyer's head, I swear to God, you wrote that letter. I want to use it. I mean, I'm not that rude. I wouldn't do it. But I swear, there's a couple people I'm close. You know which one I'm talking about, the one you wrote where it's from a buyer's perspective.
And I deliberately wrote that book, that letter, and it's written from the perspective of the buyer who's saying, look, there's a reason I'm not letting you in. First of all, you need to understand what my world is like. And second of all, your approach is horrid. And you don't interest me at all. And by the way, there are some people who are getting in, and they're sitting down in my offices talking to me because they're doing something different that you don't even know exists, because you're just doing what you think is sales, and it's not effective anymore. It's just not effective.
And so you came up with the SNAP, which is an acronym, obviously.
Snap.
I love acronyms because it was easier to figure out. And that's the 4 factors that I have to keep in mind to deal with the crazy busy, which I would argue is everybody. I think every business owner, and I deal I mean, our business is, we do over 600 returns. 80-90% are business owners, and I argue that small business owners by nature are ADD. If I can get 5 minutes at a time, I better be very fast at it. I loved your story. What was that guy's name you used? In your story, I wrote it down. I'll get to it in a minute. But everybody, they all have ADD, and they all follow the rule of no pain, no change. And that's what you were talking about in your second one, is that the status quo is best. But your SNAP, how does that solve the problem that I have? And can you go into the acronym for me?
Yeah. It was interesting because I spent a lot of time understanding, first of all, what happened to people when they were under a great deal of stress and overwhelm, and how it affects their thinking. You know, and like, you can't take things in, and complexity totally overwhelms you. And if something, I mean, even if you're busy and you're trying to get a bunch of tax returns done yourself, and the deadline is approaching, and your wife comes in and says, you know, honey, I was thinking that, you know, maybe we ought to go out for dinner tomorrow night. And you kind of look at her like,
I can't think past today.
I can't think, you know. I mean, you can't think.
Trust me, I understand. Yeah.
Adding some new complexity, and you go, don't hassle me now. I'm in the midst, and I've got these deadlines. And so, anyway, so when I saw that was happening, I said, well, what is going on in people's minds, and how are they making decisions on salespeople, just simply on salespeople, and their reaction to them? And what I found is that there were 4 factors at play, and the first one is simplicity. They're literally saying, is this simple or is this complex? Because if it's complex, well, under intense pressure, I may need to change and I may need to learn about it, but if you're making it complicated for me, I can't handle it. And by the way, a lot of small business owners intentionally complicate things to make themselves sound bigger and better.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that more, but that is something that people do, and that's like the laundry list. Like, you know, we're a small marketing firm, and we can do advertising, PR, online media, search engine optimization, blah 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 blah, and they're trying to make themselves sound like an impressive organization. But I'm hearing, as a buyer, you can do all this, and I'm just spinning. We don't need any of that. We got a marketing firm we're dealing with, and I'm ruling you out. So simplicity is real crucial. The second one they're listening to is, do you sound like a resource and invaluable? And the N in SNAP is invaluable, and I kind of play off the iPad with a little tiny I and a capital N, but sound like an invaluable resource, or you sound like every other salesperson that's harassed. Turn it on. And I don't think, and I can maybe give a specific example, but I don't think that most people realize that their behavior, which they think is non-salesy, and they're trying to be non-salesy, is really very salesy. And we can talk about specifically phone calls and stuff, and I can show exactly what I mean. But they're listening to see if you sound invaluable, like you have ideas, insights, and information that could be helpful to them. And then they're listening to if you're aligned with their business objectives. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
don't care about your stuff that you're selling or your services. There's nothing in their, in their job description that says CPA firm.
Right.
Nobody wants sales training, for God's sake. They just want to increase their revenue. So if I talk about that I'm a sales trainer, they go, I'm not evaluated on sales training. But if I talk to small business owners or big corporations about, bringing more revenue, or getting more revenue per customer, or speeding up the sales cycle and making the velocity of the sale faster, then they are interested because that's what they're measured on. So
Mm-hmm.
alignment, the A in SNAP, is really about really being relevant to what's most top of mind for them. And then the P is priorities. What's urgent right now? Because again, when you're busy, you handle the urgent stuff,
Mm-hmm.
not urgent. And so SNAP, you really have to think all the time, keeping it simple or complicating things. Do we sound like a salesperson or do we sound like a valuable resource? Very different sound.
Mm-hmm.
Are we aligned or are we irrelevant? And is it a priority or is it just, something that'd be nice to get around to sometime?
What I think you just said that was pretty key in there is that and you bring it up. Let's just change it in the snap check that you're talking about. The snap check at every contact point.
Yes.
What you're doing in there, if I hear you correctly, is forcing us to think from the buyer's viewpoint.
Perspective. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Let me just share with you some thoughts on that. It's amazing to me how many people don't. They say intellectually, they say, yeah, you got to get into your buyer's shoes and understand it from their perspective. And so I'll say to people, okay, you're calling a lot of people on the phone trying to get meetings, right? Have you ever called yourself and listened to yourself? And they look at me like, no. Well, how do you know how you sound? And so then I make them, even in training sessions, when I work with companies, I say, okay, everybody now, you've got your message written out that you want to use. Let's test it. Call yourself up, leave yourself a voicemail message, and then
Gotcha.
listen to
Okay.
your message. And what happens is most of the people hang up from listening to their message and they say, oh my God, I would have deleted myself. And it's like it's a big reality. I would have deleted myself. It went on and on and on, or it was so boring, or it just sounds like every other salesperson. I sound cheesy. And they didn't know that because they never listened from the buyer's perspective.
Okay. And that snap check, when you're saying every contact point,
Yeah.
you literally in the book, or you went into detail on like the first contact. Every single time I touch them, I need to bring it from their viewpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you're
Selling isn't about you, it's about them. Your product and service helps them achieve their objectives. If they choose to do business with you, it's because you bring value to them as a human being and you help their business. And it's not about you. And everything you want to say, that's really nice that you want to say this about your company. But is it relevant? Is it important? I mean, I can't tell you how many companies I see that feel like they'll go into a PowerPoint presentation or bring a handout to go through things with people, and it starts out with, our company was founded in 1986 by our boss, and we had a merger in 1993, and these are our 3 locations in California, and we have 72 employees. It's like, who cares? Who cares? Nobody in the world cares about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, every contact point, it's about the customer.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question. If I want to get inside their mind, but we also want to treat them all as individuals. So how do I do that? How do I create caricatures of my normal customer, or?
Yeah.
And then I also need to take that caricature. I guess I'm asking a second question. You talk a lot in there about pre-research, which is so much easier now.
Yes.
I
right.
guess those are 2 different questions. I'll let you go. Pick which one you want. I guess talking about the first one, the character. I mean, how do you handle it? I mean, everybody's different,
One of
but
the things I really suggest is typically people call on certain types of decision makers, or they call on certain industries. And like, for example, I call on VPs of sales.
right.
And if I stop and think about VPs of sales, there are certain things that they're always concerned about. Like, they always are concerned about new client acquisition. They're always concerned about sales rep turnover. They're always concerned about how long the sales cycle is. And they're always concerned about the profitability of their sales. They're always concerned about add-on business. Those are things that I can, if I'm calling on VPs of sales, for the most part, I can assume that they're pretty much all addressing these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can create essentially a persona, and I actually have one called Eric, who is my VP of sales, and I know how Eric thinks. He's under a ton of pressure. He's got his sales guys out there, and in many cases they are sales guys, and he's traveling around the country going from office to office, and he's on the road a lot. He's got 2 young kids, and he lives with his cell phone attached to his pocket, and he's just frantic. I know that this is Eric, and this is his life, and if I don't catch Eric 2 seconds with a message that matters to Eric about new client acquisition, and the fact that he may not meet his numbers right away unless he does something about it, then that helps me to see Eric. That's who I'm calling. And Eric may be John or it may be Sally, but the essence is